Morning, everyone. Welcome to Daily Revelations. So we're going to talk about a word. When we read the Bible, we interpret words with meanings that we bring from just our experiences with words, and we often don't think about that when we're digging into Bible text, that we are doing that in that process. But a lot of words, when they're translated, don't translate quite well into the English language. So it's always good to have resources to be able to go back and see what the original text meant. If you want to do that on your own, here's a tip. Blue Letter Bible is a site you can go to, and it actually will link to the actual exact word. Even if you use your concordance, not always will that word take you back to the root word. It'll take you maybe back to a general description of other places where that word is used, so you can kind of cross-reference, but it isn't always the exact word. It's sometimes the word that it was interpreted into that word, and then all of them get meshed into a big pile. So we're going to talk about the word loving kindness, because when I put it in the description here on YouTube, it said it wasn't a word. But it's used a lot in the Bible, depending on your translation. In my NASB, it said loving kindness. Now, when I went back to the King James Version, which is where I search for my Hebrew words, it said mercy. But again, what exactly does that word mean? And what was the root word that... so what I'm talking about is verse 5. At the end of verse 5, Nehemiah is praying. And this is what he says about God. He said, you preserve the covenant, and the God who preserves the covenant and loving kindness for those who love him and keep his commands. So it's God who's instilling the loving kindness to those who love him and keep his commands. Now, that is a really important part of understanding loving kindness. Why? Because if you go back, this is my really big book of Hebrew to English, or English to Hebrew. Anyways, it's loving kindness specifically is a quality of kindness that's usually only reserved for people that you have a relationship with, friends and family. And when you dispose or just put this loving kindness, it's the word, and I'm going to massacre this Hebrew word. It's chesedeth. That's exactly what it means. It means that a relationship exists in order for this loving kindness, or that the one that's choosing to give the loving kindness has chosen to treat you like a relative or somebody that's close to them. And so, and they're exercising that relationship towards you. And that's exactly what God does. That's exactly what this verse is saying, is that when we choose to follow God's commands, when we love him, we enter that relationship with him. That is when he can bestow the greatest amount of loving kindness upon us, because we've entered into that relationship. I made some notes this morning, and even before I looked up what this word meant, the things that were on my heart was that as we choose selfishness, as we choose fear, as we choose to control our own lives, we step out of that relationship on purpose. Because, and this was a huge one for me, everything, I wrote this to myself, everything I do is either for God or against God. It's either moving me closer in a relationship to him or further away. And God's loving kindness, it hinges on my relationship with him. And so, but as I choose that relationship, I will learn to trust in him more. I move closer to him. My humility increases because he takes over control. And I not only love myself, but I love God and I love those around me because I take myself out of the equation. And I just want to wrap up with this. This was the final thing I wrote to myself in my notes this morning was, in God's loving kindness, when I do everything that he desires, it not only benefits God, it benefits me because he loves me and he desires what is best for me. And he does the same for you. We fear God, we are going to lose ourselves. The great thing is when we follow God, we actually find ourselves. And we find it embraced in his loving kindness. So I hope that that rings a bell with you or touches a chord. I know it did for me this morning. So be encouraged. Continuing your study of Nehemiah. Today we looked at all the references to God, and I hope I came up with a huge list, big list of all these things that God does just from that one prayer of Nehemiah. So anyways, have an awesome day, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye, everybody.